Mitrom and Bandhuvam, welcome to South Asia Maps. This is your presenter Dr. J. Reddy. We are continuing our fascinating journey on human ecology predicament series. This is the part 109 of that series. The topic of today's discussion is Termination of Colonialism, early graduates, later graduates. Colonialism is rule of one nation, one culture, society, other, even neighbors or faraway lands. That is colonialism. Termination of colonialism, early graduates means people who are colonized, they fought or they were granted, they got liberated, got independent, governed their own affairs. They are called graduates in this sense. Termination of colonialism, early graduates, later graduates. These are the early graduates. Here the colonialism, United States, Canada were formerly colonial nations, and Australia, New Zealand. I just shown only few here. Early graduates, these are the later graduates after the World War II. That is I have shown here British Empire from Cape to Cairo. Cape is Cape Town in the Cape province and Cairo is on the Mediterranean coast. Earlier graduate made to affluent nation status. Later graduate failed to make to this affluent nation status. The title is Termination of Colonialism. We have earlier graduates, we have later graduates. Earlier grads, later grads. Earlier grads made to affluent nation status. Later grads couldn't make to affluence status. Why? That is the ecological view. We are taking a historical perspective in an ecological way rather than the political social view. Mitram and Bandhuvam, if you are new to my presentations, I have posted more than 400 presentations at South Asia Maps JRD. You can go and take a look at them, and they cover varied, diverse topics from Indology, history, geography, culture, and to human ecology. This is our series. This is our ecological series, human ecology. We are in part 109. Termination of colonialism, earlier graduates and later graduates, how relate to affluence. So there are other presentations before, and you can browse them here. Whichever is interest to you, you can go and explore them at our YouTube channel, South Asia Maps JRD. Other presentations, the basic concepts you will get once you listen to these videos, you spend the time, you get a different ecological perspective, and you can articulate them very different way of current socio-political, economic the happenings. So the earlier graduates are United States here, Canada here, Australia here, New Zealand here. These are the earlier graduates. They overthrew colonialism in various stages. These are the later graduates, essentially African nations, Asian nations, and so on. I will expand this further. Termination of colonialism, earlier graduates, later graduates. So, after World War II and post-colonial the colonial disestablishment, there was a great illusion among the intellectuals in Europe or North America that most other nations will reap means they will benefited by the neo-exuberance. There is exuberance in North America. Exuberance means The happiness, ebullience, efflorescence, ecological exuberance gives to social exuberance, that gives to political exuberance, socio-political economic exuberance. The United States, Canada, that means termination of this colonialism after World War, but it could not renew the limitlessness of the nation. That's the major limitation. This earth is limited. The planet earth has around about 12,000 kilometers from end to end. That is the diameter. And if you use the standard formula, carry the surface area, it is 510 million square kilometers, and among which 150 units, million square kilometers, the surface. The planet is limit. It is not flat. It is not limitless. United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, they former very rich colonial components of the British Empire. They were all British Empire parts. Even USA was a part of British Empire for a lot of years. They were the part of former richest colonial components of British Empire. At that time, they had a carrying capacity surplus. Carrying capacity is the ability of a land habitat to support permanently. That is very important. That means you have a lot of area, lot of agricultural land, good weather, climate. You can support more and more people because you can produce more and more food. And if you have more minerals, metals, you can give the industrial lifestyle also. Former richest components of the British Empire is a carrying capacity surplus. Later, they made a mistake of drawing upon the carrying capacity surplus to draw upon so that new immigrants can go. The presence of free land, there is a lot of land in these nations, lot of big frontier. Expansion of the frontier means getting of more resources. That means there is a lot of frontier. Frontier as advancement means there is a lot of dispensable flora and fauna. The humans can take over the land and displace the plants and animals and use it for their own benefits. And there are also disregardable natives like Maoris, Aborigines in Australia and New Zealand, and native Red Indians in United States, which European colonizers considered lesser civilization dispensable. They eliminated them. Whoever remained, they confined them to reservations. So dispensable non-Europeans, that is Amerindians, Aborigines, Maoris. Later freed states, that means World War II, they suffered this carrying capacity deficits. These lands were already overpopulated, so they cannot repeat the story of the former colonial parts like United States, Canada. That means when these nations got only political independence, their biological, geological, chemical banks were already flushed with, they were not flushed with heavy rich physical energy, material resources like coal, oil, natural gas, and so on. These new nations were not biogeochemical, didn't have a rich these resources. That means years of exuberance, used to be years of exuberance for 5 centuries, from 1500 voyages, discoveries, Columbian discovery of New America and so on. These New World nations enjoyed for nearly 400 of the centuries immense amount of affluence that is called exuberance. Their exuberance is ecological based. This ecological exuberance led to political exuberance, social exuberance. They established modern democracies and so on. But they had a base. So that exuberance ended. Now we are in a post-exuberant period. There is no actual exuberance, but still people think there is an exuberance. Is a twilight zone. We can say a sort of new exuberance, but essentially we are in post-exuberant era. That means the takeover of the land by the older nations, and because they were empty land rich in biological, geological, chemical resources, minerals, metals, oil, so on. So they did draw down and become very wealthy nations. But eventually now also they suffer now. Carrying capacity deficits are running on phantom carrying capacity. All the rest of the nations, entire world suffers from population redundancy. There is excess population on the planet Earth of 8,000 million people, 8 billion people. Here I have given the comparison. So United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, when the country got independence, this year 1776. Again, there is a, what is independent in Commonwealth countries is very, very different. Sometimes there is a confederation in Canada that happened around about 1867 or so. Australia became the federated to the mainland 1901, later became the Dominion of Commonwealth. New Zealand became the member of Dominion, called Dominion status. Politically there is a gradation, variation. Thus we are not that much concerned. Essentially they got more freedom to conduct their affairs. The population 333 million, 40 million in Canada, 26 in Australia, 5 million in New Zealand. This is the surface area, 10 million square kilometers. USA, Canada almost have. Australia 7.7. New Zealand is a small country, that is 0.268 million or 268,000 square kilometers. If you divide the area by population, this gives the number of people square kilometer. You may get wrong that when you say Canada has only 4 people per square kilometers, but most of the land doesn't have the carrying capacity. That means very cold and in the northern latitude, that we have discussed in other part. So just to give you a broader idea. So these are the earlier graduates, these are the later graduates. The earlier graduates made it to the affluent nation status. Later graduates could not make it. So you have to understand this, the area concept. I have talked in other presentations, like Canada 10 million square kilometers, USA 10 million, China 10 million, entire Europe west of Ural Mountains 10 million, Brazil 8 million, this Australasia, Oceania 8 million square kilometers. How we come to that? Very intuitive way. How I explained elsewhere. Interested audience can find it there. That's the fascinating aspect. What did we talk today? We talked about the ecological view, how the earlier graduates of colonial empire like United States, Canada and Australia, New Zealand, here they made to very wealthy status. Why the later graduates of British imperialism, Spanish imperialism, Portuguese, Dutch imperialism, Afro-Asian nations from Cape to Cairo, and they were unable to make to that rich status because they are already overpopulated and they do not have much land to take over to dispense the flora and fauna, disposable one or dispensable one. Their biological, geological, chemical banks reserves are very limited. They already depleted their soils and almost occupied the entire arable land form. There is not much they can do. Whatever they achieved is at the cost of other nations, because they are now depending on drawing down the fossil fuels, mostly oil, coal, and running the industrial civilization, running a little more higher standard of living. And that is the story. The later entrants could not be able to make to affluent status because they simply lack the resources, because the planet is not limitless. They are already older nations. That's the main point today. That's the take home message. Earlier graduates, later graduates. This is the ecological view. We are not talking about the democracy, politics, elections, votes and seats, percentages. That is a unimportant socio-political view. More important is the ecological view. That's what Dr. Catton brings to you in a very fascinating way if you read his books. And thank you very much joining me today, Mitra and Bandhu. Hope this will put you in a different perspective. And if you like these presentations, please subscribe the channel, bring it to the notice of your friends, and put your comments and suggestions. See you later in other presentation.